Hello, and welcome to the Logical Love podcast, where love is more than feelings. While we think that feelings are important, especially in relationships with other people, logic, we think it's equally important, and oftentimes it is overlooked, especially when we are talking about emotions and we meet someone and we get interested in someone. So, for that reason, we decided to create and share ways to use logic for a lasting relationship that includes not just lust, but also trust. My name is Joanna, and I'm going to be your hostess today. So, today we will be talking about things that disturb us and how oftentimes that disturbance is actually created not by the things themselves, but by our opinions or expectations about those things. And speaking of expectations, we actually shared a valuable newsletter this past Friday regarding expectations and standards in dating. If you're interested in subscribing to the newsletter, you can go to logical.love, not .com, but .love. So, going back again, today's topic, Epictetus, who was a Greek Stoic philosopher, said, "We are disturbed not by things, but by the views which we take of them." Have you ever been disturbed by something happening around you? Maybe you got worked up, and then soon you discover that the context of the situation made it all different. So imagining the following scenario. You're driving on the highway, you're minding your own business, staying in your lane, and listening to a nice soothing music that is playing on the radio. Now, when you look at the back mirror, you see a car approaching at high speed. The car is swerving in and out of the lane, and in the way, it almost hits a bunch of other cars. So, you know it's late, so you think to yourself, that guy's an idiot, and it's probably drunk, or is on his phone, maybe even both, you imagine. And as the car approaches and the scenario builds in your head, you say, he's putting everyone's life at danger. And you feel yourself more and more worked up. Now, as the car passes you, you can't believe how close it drove towards yours. It made you move out of your lane to avoid a collision. Now, you're so worked up, you can't even remember what you were thinking about anymore. You can't even hear the soothing music on the radio. You can only feel your heart racing, the rage coming upon you, and the strong impulses to hit something or someone. Anyways, you continue your trip, and as time goes by, you feel calmer and back to your original state of minding your own business. Suddenly, you spot the idiot's car stopped on the side of the highway. Except instead of a drunk jerk, you see a very pregnant lady leaning against the car, having what seems to be intense and painful contractions. Effectively, that pregnant lady did drive a car and almost hit yours. Effectively, she was swerving in and out of the lane. But now, instead of hating her for being irresponsible, you understand that she was probably trying to reach the hospital on time to give birth in a safe environment. And more so, she probably didn't have anyone to drive her there. Maybe she's a single mom and couldn't afford to call an ambulance. And actually, who can? The driver in the car swerving in and out of the lane, didn't actually change. However, your views of the whole situation is what changed. So in this story, this is basically an illustration of a situation that you might have experienced in your life. Most of us, especially here in the US, drive every day to go to work or the supermarket, etc. And sometimes we come across people that are not very safe on the road. So I think it's a situation that it easily illustrates the point that Epictetus was doing, and one that can easily be applied that you probably have experience with. So, however, the question is, how does this apply in dating and romantic relationships? Well, if you think about it, people sometimes commit to other people without realizing that the other person is not committed to them. So this is one example where you can apply the disturbance of the views that you have are really the thing that are bothering you. Because in this case, the disturbance is not the uncommitted partner, but instead it's the view that we hold that they were really something that in reality they were not. Because they were never committed in the first place. We made that assumption, right? We made that thought. We believed, we had the view that they would be a committed person, but in reality they were never committed. So the disturbance comes then from that misinterpretation and then how we acted in agreement with that misinterpretation. Of course, caveat from here is that if the other person actually pretended to be committed or deceived you in any way with words or half words or promises, that is actually deceit. That's not misinterpretation. So I think this is one very clear example where one can understand why being objective and logic makes things or can help figure out whether there's deceit or there's expectations that are not being met, right? So if you can logically see what the signs were, what the words were, what the promises were, then you can better evaluate, well, was I operating from a place of I trusted this person, but they lied to me? Or was I operating from a place of, oh gosh, like they said this and I totally misinterpreted? So that doesn't mean that it's your fault. Obviously, there are nuances there, you know. Some people are very good at hinting at things, but never actually saying the things. And this is why when you keep an objective mind and an objective listening attitude, then you can at times better discern whether you are hearing what they are saying or if you are hearing what you want to hear. So the other issue is the line between misinterpretation and deceit becomes even more complicated to establish after we share intimacy with the other person. Be it physical intimacy or emotional intimacy, it just becomes way more complicated because there are a bunch of hormones that cause changes in our physiology that may increase the trust, even if it's misplaced trust, and may actually make it more difficult to be objective. So, like I said, hormones and biology can affect our abilities to be objective and logical. Sexual impulses and the biological unconscious impulse to reproduce, you may not even notice it, but it is there. It's there in pretty much every species, right? Because that has to do with the continuation of the species. And those can actually leave you believing that the person in front of you is the love of your life or is a kind and compassionate person. And sometimes that is based on things as basic as, that person having a picture of a puppy on his dating profile. Unconsciously, your brain just makes the extrapolation that means that, oh, this guy is a loving person to defenseless beings, such a puppy. And that goes further, aka a child. So it is hard to be conscious of the way our brain operates and the mechanisms by which it operates. So that's why it is valuable to bring logic first into the equation before we find ourselves wrapped up into all of these emotions. So that belief that you may hold that you can trust someone and that you can know someone even after only a couple of dates, especially and this is important, if before you actually met the person, there's some sort of I would call it quote unquote priming that was initiated by the dating app, in which you've seen the picture of this person over and over and over again. You've read the profile over and over and over again, and you start building this image of this person in your head. And, even before you actually met the person, that is the same belief, the belief that you can trust someone even before you met them or after a couple of interactions. That is what continues to leave people disturbed in the relationships and leaves people stuck in situationships where they don't trust the person that they're with, and they don't trust their word. They don't trust their actions or their judgment. In a nutshell, what I'm trying to say is that our brain, our human brain, is designed to fill in the gaps. And these gaps are the gaps of information that it doesn't actually know. So if you think about it, this was probably beneficial in our early days as human species, in which we start to see patterns and we start to fill in the gaps. And as time goes by, we'll learn those patterns, and we learn to distinguish what is a detrimental situation, what's a bad situation, what is a problem in the environment. And so when we do that, we prevent us from, in the future, to put ourselves in harm's way. So our brain is really not evolved for dating apps. The brain is used to seeing someone over and over and over again and starts to trust the person, even if it's just circumstantial trust. So if you think about it, like even someone that you just cross paths with every day, maybe in the street, maybe at your work, just because you've seen them over and over and over again, you have some sort of familiarity, right? And then because you start to create some sort of idea of the type of person that person is, because you've seen them interact with others maybe, or because you've seen that, they drink a lot of water or eat certain foods or whatever. So you create this idea of that person in your head, even without talking to them. So when you do meet the person, you already have all of this persona and assumptions about them that you created in your mind. But the issue with that is that this may or may not, or this persona that you created may or may not be, most likely it's not, right? Because you created it in your brain, it's not real. It has nothing to do with the person in front of you. Now, as you can imagine, this creates not only an issue for you because you're trusting someone that doesn't exist, or at least it may exist somewhere else in the world, but you're trusting someone that is not the person in front of you. You're trusting this persona that you made in your head. And the second problem is you lose the curiosity of actually figuring out who is the person in front of you, right? So you've seen this picture of this person on a dating app over and over. You read their profile over and over. You created this idea of this person in your head. You go on a date with them and you find yourself assuming that they're going to behave a certain way, assuming that they are going to say specific things, assuming that they are a certain kind of person. And you either get disappointed or you start lying to yourself about reality, or, well, you're going to end up thinking that they are the person that they are, and you end up getting your heart broken. But there's good news, because when we are able to see these patterns in our own behavior, in our own beliefs, we can shed light on them, and they can no longer puppeteering is about from the background. So what I'm trying to say with this is that when you are able to discern that it is not the things that happen, but it is your opinion or your expectations towards what should have happened, what should have been said, how the other person should have behaved, then you can start distinguishing what disturbs you, that being not the thing but your opinion, and whether you can do something about it. Because you cannot make someone behave a certain way. You cannot mold someone to be the person that you want them to be. You can only accept them as they are. But that means you have to keep an open mind, and you have to keep being curious about who that person is, and to really get to know the person that is in front of you, instead of just trying to make them fit into what you thought they were. So Carl Jung once said, "Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate." So because it's not the external things that bother you, right? It's not the person being this or that, but instead it is your internal views or your thoughts or beliefs about those things or those people, related to dating. We're usually talking about people. You have the power to upgrade that. You have the power to see these patterns, and you have the power to, set your assumptions and your expectations aside when you go and you meet someone, and see them with beginner's eyes and be objective about the things that they are bringing to the table, the things that they are talking about, and try to discern what values are important to them and see if those align with yours. So I hope this made sense to you. I hope this is valuable information for you. If you have any questions about any of this, or anything about your dating life, feel free to send us a message on Instagram, and the handle is lovelogician or logical.love. So send us a message, ask questions if you have them. If you want to subscribe to our newsletter, you can go to www.logical.love, not .com, but .love, and get in touch with us. And we hope to really be of benefit to your dating life, to your romantic relationships, so you can find someone that you can share your life with, someone that you trust and you lust. With love and logic, Joanna.